Happy Sunday. Top of the day. Get my stuff together. Happy Sunday, everybody. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. It is July the 25th, 2021, day 215 of year 3 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets. Another 3-year consecutive day count, day 884. 884. Remember, that count is without the Sabbath days added into the count. Why? That's all right. Because we rest on those days. Yahuwah said you got 6 days to work, 1 day to rest. So we do our best to be obedient, and we rest those days. And while we rest in those days, neither are we present here. Nikki, good morning. Blessings, divine, peaceful greetings, Uncle Nathaniel. All right, y'all. Okay, today we're reading Jeremiah 25, 26, and 27. Then we're going to pick up where we left off at on Friday in Fossilized Customs on page 257. We were talking about the difference between a Nazir and a Nazarite. Some people get that mixed up. Okay, so let's do this. Go ahead and do the Shema. Right. Y'all rest yesterday? How many of y'all actually rested yesterday? I tried to sleep as long as I possibly could. It was probably, I wouldn't sleep the whole time because all the kids was in our room, but I tried to lay in the bed as long as absolutely possible. I think I got to about, although I wasn't there the whole time, of course, just getting up, going through the house, doing stuff, coming to get back in the bed. But after, I say 1 p.m., about 1 p.m. Of course, I had been up to them suddenly came back, laid in the bed, and I took a shower, came back. We just literally just, as long as we possibly could. I want to do nothing yesterday. But got little kids, so they always hollering they hungry every 2 hours. Okay, y'all, let's do the Shema. Hear, therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, the Elohim of our fathers, has promised us in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our mighty one, he is one, and you shall love Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahuwah, our mighty one, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive, as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness, if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahuwah, our mighty one, as he has commanded us. Mind you, remember, all Yahuwah's laws is for his people, right? Anybody can join his family, and that would mean that his laws also pertain to them as well, right? So everything else all the other nations doing, Yahuwah didn't even, he did address them at certain points, but his commands is for his people. He said, look, I know what all the other nations doing. Here's what I don't want you to do, what they're doing. So these are the special rules for my house, for my people. This is what you do, right? And a lot of those things he had to call out because the other nations were doing those things. He said, yeah, I know that's going on. Okay. But here's how you act over here in my house. When you represent me, this is what we do. We don't do what they do, right? We are set apart. We are different from them, right? Some people sometimes get that twisted, especially when they go try to preach to people and saving their souls. Shalom, mom. Shalom, Demi. They try and preach people into heaven or into hell. But first of all, if they don't even acknowledge that Yahuwah is their mighty one or their God or their, you know, they ain't listen to you. And neither am I going to waste my breath. When they're ready, they'll come looking for Yahuwah and come looking for Yahuwah's people, and we will be found on our posts faithfully. Nice to see you. Come on in. Let me tell you about my family. All right. Jeremiah chapter 25. 70 years of captivity. This message for all people of Judah came to Jeremiah from Yahuwah during the 4th year of Jehoiakim's reign over Judah. This was the year when King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon began his reign. Jeremiah the prophet said to all the people in Judah and Jerusalem, for the past 23 years, from the 13th year of the reign of Josiah, son of Ammon, king of Judah, until now, Yahuwah has been giving me his messages. I have faithfully passed them on to you, but you have not listened. Again and again, Yahuwah has sent you his servants, the prophets, but you have not listened or even paid attention. Each time, the message was this: turn from the evil road you are traveling and from the evil things you are doing. Only then will I let you live in this land Yahuwah gave to you and to your ancestors forever. Do not provoke my anger by worshiping idols you made with your own hands. Then I will not harm you. Then I say, look, he even repeated it. The prophets, whenever Yahuwah sends a prophet, they only have one message. It's, look, stop it, pull yourself together, get your butt back over here, right? And do what you're supposed to be doing. You off your post, right? Let me read it again. Again and again. Verse 4. Again and again, Yahuwah has sent you his servants, the prophets, but you have not listened or even paid attention. Each time the message was this: turn from the evil road you are traveling and from the evil things you are doing. Only then will I let you live in this land that Yahuwah gave to you and to your ancestors forever. Do not provoke my anger by worshiping idols you made with your own hands. Then I will not harm you. But you would not listen to me, says Yahuwah. You made me furious by worshiping idols you made with your own hands, bringing on yourselves all the disasters you now suffer. And now, Yahuwah, the Lord of Heaven's army, says, because you have not listened to me, I will gather together all the armies of the north under King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, whom I have appointed as my deputy. Yes, a heathen king. He said, Yahuwah said he was appointed as his deputy, the creator of all heaven and earth. Yes, he appointed a heathen king to come whoop the butts of his people, because his people's hard-headed, stiff-necked, ears clogged up. They wouldn't listen, right? I'm going to read that again just in case you got. He's still doing it today, right? Other nations, Yahuwah uses everything that's already inside of this atmosphere, right? So anytime he wants to chastise a nation, he brings a mightier nation up against them to accomplish what he needs to be done. And now, Yahuwah, the Lord of Heaven's army, says, because you have not listened to me, I will gather together all the armies of the north under King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, whom I have appointed as my deputy. I will bring them all against this land and its people and against the surrounding nations. I will completely destroy you and make you an object of horror and contempt and a ruin forever. And also, I think even today, what we can see happening to Yahuwah's people today, not just like church folks, but I'm talking about like true bloodline. And some of the things that have been happening to our people for over the last 400 years, it is absolutely horrible. But our anger, rightfully so, was at the people who've been killing us in the streets and doing all manner of horrendous things to us, right? Our anger, I wouldn't say it's misdirected, but it is misdirected, right? Because Yahuwah said these things will keep happening to us if we continue to ignore him, right? Granted, they're going overboard with some of the stuff he authorized them to do, right? He said he's going to deal with them for that. But instead of um calling them out all the time. I'm not saying that you shouldn't call them out for the wrong that they're doing. You really should. But we really need to sit back and realize what's going on. This is happening to us because we turned away from Yah. Now, when we realize that as a whole, some of us are waking up, beginning to see, it's like, Father, forgive us. It's because of us, because of our hard-headedness that we are still healing here in this place. Hey, Eddie, how you doing? When we realize that and we begin to repent and turn back to Yahuwah and begin keeping his law, statutes, and commands, we'll see him begin keeping us little by little, right? He said, one by one, as they begin returning to me, he's going to hear us, right? He's going to answer our prayers and he's going to save us in those times of trouble. We'll fall off, but he's always right there. He's watching to see who is turning back to him, right? We can even see it through here, even when they went through captivity. Some of the stuff, there were certain ones that they would not touch. Although our people was pissed with him, we sick of Jeremiah, take him. You need to, and they would set him up to be captured, but Yahuwah always saved him, right? He always saved the ones that kept to his commands, right? So we didn't really have to worry about people or being caught up into some of the horrible things that were happening to some of the other people if we were actually keeping to Yah's commands, right? Okay. Eddie, I think I answered your question the other day in the other video. If you missed it, go back to the other video it was on where I spent an entire time. I paused from what we was talking about and I answered your question about circumcision. If you missed it, matter of fact, I'll make myself a note. So come back in the comment section today and you'll find a link, circumcised. Give me a few minutes to find it. But it was one of the videos last week. And watch that. All right, I'll read verse 4 again. Again and again, Yahuwah has sent you his servants, the prophets, but you have not listened or even paid attention. Each time the message was this: turn from the evil road you are traveling and from the evil things you are doing. Only then will I let you live in this land that Yahuwah gave to you and your ancestors forever. Do not provoke my anger by worshiping idols you made with your own hands. Then I will not harm you. But you would not listen to me, says Yahuwah. You made me furious by worshiping idols you made with your own hands, bringing on yourselves all the disasters you now suffer. And now, Yahuwah, the God of heaven's army says, because you have not listened to me, I will gather together all the armies of the north under King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, whom I have appointed as my deputy. I will bring them all against this land and its people and against the surrounding nations. I will completely destroy you and make you an object of horror and contempt and a ruin forever. I will take away your happy singing and laughter. The joyful voices of bridegrooms and brides will no longer be heard. Your millstones will fall silent and the lights in your homes will go out. This entire land will become a desolate wasteland. Israel and her neighboring lands will serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. And we hear this also, where the voice of the bride and the bridegroom will no longer be heard. And we read that in Revelation as well. But that time in Revelation is actually talking about when Babylon takes the fall. Babylon has fallen, right? And she is going to experience the same things, the same exact things, and even worse, she's going to suffer just like Zion suffered, right? Everybody has their turn. Then, after the 70 years of captivity are over, I will punish the king of Babylon and his people for their sins, says Yahuwah. I will make a country of the Babylon. I will make the country of the Babylonians a wasteland forever. I will bring upon them all the terrors I have promised in this book and all the penalties announced by Jeremiah against the nation. See, tell me right here. It's kind of so when you read that in Revelation, Babylon has fallen. Yahuwah tells you all the way back here. This is where they get it from. Some of the stuff in the New Testament is simply just repeated or regurgitated and put back there. But you want to get to the foundation, the origin of it, come back here. That's where it is. And you get the full story of why this is happening, right? And they're not just, well, yeah, Yahuwah said he's going to punish them for their sins, which includes everything that they have done to Yahuwah's people all this time, right? Then after 70 years of captivity are over, and this is a constant repeating cycle, we can see it each time, right? Then after the 70 years of captivity are over, I will punish the king of Babylon and his people for their sins, says Yahuwah. I will make the country of the Babylonians a wasteland forever. I will bring upon them all the terrors I have promised in this book and all the penalties announced by Jeremiah against the nations. Many nations and great kings will enslave the Babylonians just as they have enslaved my people. Y'all hear? And I said a while ago I was going to stop calling them the hate brews, but some of the Hebrew Israelites, they kind of stand on the street corners in different places, like they're like preaching mean. They're like, ain't well, some of them not, some of them not, but some of them really are. And they call them like the white man, the devil, and they don't just they. Let me tell you, they don't discriminate. They even talk down to our own people, calling us all kinds of names, and even the women of Zion. And I sit there like, oh, are they really talking like this? Like it blows my mind. Some of the crazy things they say. Some of the things they say are true. And this is one of the points that you will see them harping on, right? It said, this particular point, they said that the other nations are going to get it just like we got it, but even worse. Technically, what they said was true, right? Because that's what Yahuwah said, and they're repeating that, but they just your ears have to be ready for them, right? But they do have a lot of garbage mixed up in some of the stuff they are saying, and some of their stuff is way off, way off, right? Okay. Many nations and great kings will enslave the Babylonians just as they have enslaved my people. I will punish them in proportion to the suffering they caused my people. And if y'all were here earlier in the year while we were still reading the legends of the Jews, while we were going through the plagues of Egypt, the legends of the Jews, although it's called the legends of the Jews, they come from real manuscripts. It's just a title of it. Remember, the legends of the Jews is a compilation of all the manuscripts that the many different nations had that had the same information. So although he didn't put together in his book, the book is over 500 pages and we read it all. Although he didn't put all the information that he found in the different nations in the book, he only added those things that each nation had the same, right? So all the information is there. He just decided, okay, everybody agrees on this. Everybody has this story or this part in their manuscript. So all of this, everybody agrees on that this actually happened. This, okay, so we're going to add this. So all the like things that all the nations knew about, he kind of put in his one book, and they call it the Legends of the Jews. Not legend that is this myth or whatever, but these people are legendary. Like and we still living today, right? We're the offspring of those people. But I brought that up to say, right here at the end of verse 14, Yahuwah says, I will punish them in proportion to the suffering they cause my people. It gives more detail, like the plagues that the plagues that we read about in Exodus and the Canonized, the Holy Bible. It's really just a summary of what happened. But if you go into the Legends of the Jews and a couple other manuscripts, and I mentioned the Legends of the Jews because we actually read that together, right? It gives you more detail of each plague, right? And if you forgot about it, if you have it, go get it. And I'll actually leave the link. Um, so if you want to go back today or sometime in the near future or whenever, and you want to actually read over the plagues and the expanded story of the plagues, you should do it. And you can tell, and it shows you why Yahuwah brought each plague on the different people, right? So like with the plague of darkness, right? He said he brought that plague on Egypt, the darkness, because they were in the habit of throwing his people, the Israelites, into dark dungeons, right? And would leave them in the dark for days, right? So Yahuwah he punishes people in proportion to the suffering that they cause his people. He calls it measure for measure, right? You do this, I'm going to do this to you. Like what you do to your neighbor will also be done to you. Measure for measure. He punishes them in the proportion that they cause his people to suffer, right? It's really good. And you will see that when you understand that, you will see as you read through the scripture, Yahuwah always does that. That's the way he operates. You do this to my people, I'm going to do the same thing to your people. Let's see how you like it, right? Don't do this. Measure for measure. Matter of fact, the video that I did when we're reading that portion, the title for that day, it's called Measure for Measure. So if you want to go look at that, go through my videos and look for the title Measure for Measure. Matter of fact, I think the picture that's there is actually me doing this, like the scales, Measure for Measure. Look for that video. And I think the 2 days preceding it, we talked about it a little bit, and a couple days after it, because it was a whole big section that we was reading through, and it's kind of broken up through the day. So if you find that video, Measure for Measure, you're safe to know. I mean, when you're good if you watch like 2 videos before that one and like 2 or 3 videos after that, so you can get the full gist. And actually the links and everything to what we read in the Legends of the Jews is there, right? Okay. Verse 15, the cup of Yahuwah's anger. This is what Yahuwah, the God of Israel, says. This is what Yahuwah, the God of Israel, said to me. Take from my hand this cup filled to the brim with my anger, and make all the nations to whom I send you drink from it. When they drank from it, they will stagger, crazed by warfare I will send against them. So I took the cup of anger from Yahuwah and made all the nations drink from it, every nation to which Yahuwah sent me. I went to Jerusalem and the other towns of Judah, and their kings and officials drank from the cup. From that day until this, they have been a desolate ruin, an object of horror, contempt, and cursing. I gave the cup to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, his attendants, his officials, and all his people, along with all the foreigners living in that land. And they didn't actually physically drink from a cup. He pretty much just told them, have them drink from this cup. Help them to understand that this is what I'm about to do, right? You drinking from that cup. Let everybody hear what's about to go down. I gave the cup to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and his attendants, his officials, and all his people, along with all the foreigners living in the land. I also gave it to all the kings in the land of Uz, and the kings of the Philistine cities in Ashkelon, Gaza, Ekron, and what remains of Ashdod. Then I gave the cup of the nations to Edom, Moab, and Ammon, and the kings of Tyre and Sidon, and the kings of the regions across the sea. I gave it to Dedan, Timnah, and Buz, and to the people who live in distant places. I gave it to the kings of Arabia, the kings of the nomadic tribes of the desert, and to the kings of Zimri, Elam, and Media. And I gave it to the kings of the northern countries, far and near, one after the other, all the kingdoms of the world. And finally, the king of Babylon himself drank from the cup of Yahuwah's anger. Then Yahuwah said to me, now tell them, this is what Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, the God of Israel, says. Drink from this cup of my anger. Get drunk and vomit. Fall to rise no more, for I am sending terrible wars against you. And if they refuse to accept the cup, tell them, Yahuwah, the God of heaven's army, says, you have no choice but to drink from it. I have begun to punish Jerusalem, the city that bears my name. Now, should I let you go unpunished? No, you will not escape disaster. I will call for war against all the nations of the earth. I, Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, have spoken. Now, prophesy all these things and say to them, Yahuwah will roar against his own land from his holy dwelling in heaven. Remember, let's begin judgment and let's start at my house, right? He gets his people first. The churn, get it first. Because y'all knew better. Yahuwah will roar against his own land from his holy dwelling in heaven. He will shout like those who tread grapes. He will shout against everyone on the earth. His cry of judgment will reach the ends of the earth, for Yahuwah will bring his case against all nations. He will judge all the people of the earth, slaughtering the wicked with the sword. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. This is what Yahuwah, the God of heaven's army, says. Look, disaster will fall upon nation after nation. A great whirlwind of fury is rising from the most distant corners of the earth. In that day, those Yahuwah has slaughtered will fill the earth from one end to the other. Don't we see that happening? There's some of these disasters, like, whew, America, I ain't gonna say America's has been kind of kept safe. It's like happening all over the world, all around America, right? Because I don't know. It's coming, y'all. If y'all paying attention. I'm just saying. You ain't gotta worry about it, be afraid if you just doing what's right. I'm just saying. This is what Yahuwah, the God of heaven's army, says. Look, disaster will fall upon nation after nation. A great whirlwind of fury is rising from the most distant corners of the earth. In that day, those Yahuwah has slaughtered will fill the earth from one end to the other. No one will mourn for them or gather up their bodies to bury them. They will be scattered on the ground like manure. Weep and moan, you evil shepherds. Roll in the dust, you leaders of the flock. The time of your slaughter has arrived. You will fall and shatter like a fragile vase, and you will find no place to hide. There will be no way to escape. Listen to the frantic cries of the shepherds. The leaders of the flock are wailing in despair, for Yahuwah is ruining their pastures. Oh, y'all see that rat plague going on over in Australia? Ugh, make my skin crawl. It's getting worse. It's been happening for months now, and they see no end in sight. And yes, baby. The water park. Yes, we're going to the water park. You just barely opened your eyes, son. I said we're going today. Go. And y'all know how fast mice reproduce. Like, I think they can reproduce. I think like I could have this wrong. I might have them mixed up with rabbits. But they reproduce like, somebody check it, like every month, right? I actually think it if I remember correctly, I think it's like every 30 days they can reproduce. That's why it's just like, whoa. I can't even get through the videos watching some of it, right? I'm like, they better floor all them planes over there. Don't let now one leave that place. Keep that there, right? Because people trying to get out of there, they can't get out of there. Their lands are being overrun by mice. Their homes are being overrun. Oh, y'all just gotta go look it up. Just go look it up. I'm gonna stop talking about it. I'm just like, sheesh. Oh, okay. Weep and moan, you evil shepherds. Roll in the dust, you leaders of the flock. The time of your slaughter has arrived. You will fall and shatter like a fragile vase. You will find no place to hide. There will be no way to escape. Listen to the frantic cries of the shepherds. The leaders of the flock are wailing in despair, for Yahuwah is ruining their pastures. Peaceful meadows will be turned into a wasteland by Yahuwah's fierce anger. He has left his den like a strong lion seeking its prey, and their land will be made desolate by the sword of the enemy and Yahuwah's fierce anger. Yeah, go look up, just type in mouse plague or rat plague in Australia. People, you should see some of the people that's doing videos. They are wigging out. Imagine if you coming like this. The mice are taking over their homes and everything. So go look up that. You can Google it. You can put it in YouTube. Matter of fact, I encourage you to type it into YouTube so you can see these videos that's coming up and some of the personal videos that some of the people are doing. Right? I'm just like, y'all, I don't know what I would do. Like I said, I couldn't even get through some of the videos. All right, y'all. Next chapter, Jeremiah chapter 26. Jeremiah's escape from death. This message came to Jeremiah from Yahuwah early in the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah. This is what Yahuwah says. Stand in the courtland in front of the temple of Yahuwah and make an announcement to the people who have come there to worship from all over Judah. Give them my entire message. Include every word. Perhaps they will listen and turn from their evil ways. Then I will change my mind about the disaster I am ready to pour out on them because of their sins. You see how he's such a good daddy, right? All these warnings we kept getting over and over and over again. You know, it's almost kind of like moms. Dads are sometimes you got some real patient dads, right? But you kind of see that a lot with moms. Moms will keep giving you some. I ain't gonna say all moms, because some they have no patience whatsoever. But I'm one of the moms that has a whole lot of patience. Listen, go sit down there. I told you stop. Like, hey, look, what did I just tell you? I told you. If you do it again, I'm gonna pop your butt. Now go ahead and sit down. I really don't want to whoop you. Just stop it. Right? Then they just finally just had it up to here with them. They just will not listen, right? And then you have to bring discipline, right? But the discipline is not to kill you forever. It's to get you back on the right path and do what's right, right? Look, okay. So that's what you will do. He's like, look, tell them every word. Like, and he keeps sending prophet after prophet, prophet after prophet, right? Okay. Say to them, this is what Yahuwah says. If you will not listen to me and obey my word I have given you, and if you will not listen to my servants, the prophets, who is his servant? The prophets come from Israel. It's the bloodline, right? He chooses them from Israel. This is what Yahuwah says. If you will not listen to me and my word I have given you, and if you will not listen to my servants, the prophets, for I sent them again and again to warn you, but you will not listen to them, then I will destroy this temple as I destroyed Shiloh, the place where the tabernacle was located. And I will make Jerusalem an object of cursing in every nation on the earth. The priests, the prophets, and all the people listened to Jeremiah as he spoke in front of Yahuwah's temple. But when Jeremiah had finished his message, saying everything Yahuwah had told him to say, the priests and prophets and all the people at the temple mobbed him. Kill him, they shouted. What right do you have to prophesy in Yahuwah's name that this temple will be destroyed like Shiloh? What do you mean saying that Jerusalem will be destroyed, left with no inhabitants? And all the people threatened him as he stood in front of the temple. Like, they pissed about this. Like, they looking at the wrong one. Y'all trying to crucify me. I'm simply just relaying a message. Like, keep that same energy and direct it at him, right? They ain't crazy. They're gonna take out that energy, that furious energy on Jeremiah, because they can see him, right? Listen, when the officials of Judah heard what was happening, they rushed over from the palace and sat down at the new gate of the temple to hold court. The priests and the prophets presented their accusations to the officials and the people. This man should die, they said. You have heard with your own ears what a traitor he is, but he prophesied against this city. Like, y'all are worried about the wrong thing. He pretty much telling y'all, listen, the city will stay intact if y'all stop with y'all shenanigans, right? They missing the whole thing. They are missing the complete point. Like, we can still see a lot of Yahuwah's people. They are missing the whole complete point, right? They're doing the same thing. Oh, here, Trady talking about we're all gonna die. The city gonna be torn to pieces. The temple gonna be torn down. Look at us today. They out here killing us and this and this and that. Why are they killing you? Granted, I get the argument. I really do. But Yahuwah's people should be repenting and returning to Yah, not complaining about everything else. that the other nations are doing to us. Yahuwah said this would stop if you would stop and return to me, right? They just gonna keep doing what they doing, right? Granted, our people may find a little bit of relief, but they still Yahuwah said they're still um rendering themselves not guilty, right? So we still not really for real getting any kind of justice for real, right? And that may pacify a few people here and there, but the marches and all that stuff, what is it really doing? Nobody is really helping us for real, right? I mean, there's a false semblance of peace, but until Yahuwah's people stop misdirecting their anger at all the other nations, granted, they just falling in, they doing what they've always done, right? But we are the problem. We are the problem. Our anger should be directed at our own selves, our own people, because we know how our people can be. Some of us is ratchet, conniving, deceiving, unfaithful, whatever you can name, that is us, right? Other people too, but Yahuwah, he ain't really talk. He want to get his message to his own churn, right? I don't care about your friends. I care about you, and this is what you shouldn't be doing, right? That's the whole message. Father to the Son, us being His Son, right? Listen, child, this is what you should be doing, not that what they're doing, right? Here's the rules, right? And if you do this, you will fare well in life, right? So when Yahuwah said, when we stop and we return to Him and we repent for our sins and the sins of our hard-headed ancestors, those who have gone to the grave before us, that they are considered our ancestors, right? The ones who've recently gone to the grave and those who've gone to the grave over many millennia ago, right? Our ancestors repent for our sins and their sins as well. Because some of us are still walking in the sins of our ancestors, some of the sins of our forefathers, right? And some of us still getting our tails toe off like they got theirs toe off the hinges, right? It's because of our own sins. He said, if you stop it, I will stop the disaster that I said was coming upon you, right? When the officials of Judah heard what was happening, they rushed over from the palace and sat down at the new gate of the temple to hold court. The priests and prophets presented their accusations to the officials and the people. This man should die, they said. You have heard with your own ears what a traitor he is, for he has prophesied against this city. Then Jeremiah spoke to the officials and the people in his own defense. Yahuwah sent me to prophesy against this temple and this city, he said. Yahuwah gave me every word that I have spoken. But if you stop your sinning and begin to obey Yahuwah your God, he will change his mind about this disaster that he has announced against you. But as for me, I am in your hands. Do with me as you think best. But if you kill me, rest assured you will be killing an innocent man. The responsibility for such a deed will lie on you, on this city, and on every person living in it. For it is absolutely true that Yahuwah has sent me to speak every word you have heard. Then the officials and the people said to the priest, this man does not deserve the death sentence, for he has spoken to us in the name of Yahuwah our God. It kind of like the same thing, kind of same story regurgitated over in the Gospels. Pilate, this man didn't do it. I'm washing my hands clean of the matter, right? Y'all take him to Caesar, right? This man, I could see no wrong, right? Then let me read that again, verse 16. Then the officials and the people said to the priests and prophets, this man does not deserve the death sentence, for he has spoken to us in the name of Yahuwah our God. Then some of the wise old men stood and spoke to all the people assembled there. They said, remember when Micah of Moresheth prophesied during the reign of King Hezekiah of Judah. He told the people of Judah, this is what Yahuwah, the Lord of heaven's army, says. Mount Zion will be plowed like an open field. Jerusalem will be reduced to ruins. A thicket will grow on the heights where the temple now stands. But did King Hezekiah and the people kill him for saying this? No, they turned from their sins and worshiped Yahuwah. They begged him for mercy. Then Yahuwah changed his mind about the terrible disaster he had pronounced against them. So we are about to do ourselves a great harm. At this time, Uriah, son of Shemaiah from Kiriath Jearim, was also prophesying for Yahuwah, and he predicted the same terrible disaster against the city and nation as Jeremiah did. When King Jehoiakim and the army officers and officials heard what he was saying, the king sent someone to kill him. But Uriah heard about the plan and escaped in fear to Egypt. The king, Jehoiakim sent Elnathan, the son of Achbor, to Egypt along with several other men to capture Uriah. They took him prisoner and brought him back to King Jehoiakim. The king then killed Uriah with a sword and had him buried in an unmarked grave. Nevertheless, Ahikam, son of Shaphan, stood up for Jeremiah and persuaded the court not to turn him over to the mob to be killed. Right? And so right here with the death of Uriah, that portion where it says you're always killing the prophets, it was talking about these prophets. Some of them, not all of them, a few of them were killed, right? But some of the rest of them, who were actually protected. Last chapter for today, Jeremiah chapter 27. Jeremiah wears an ox yoke. Shalom, HB. Okay. This message came to Jeremiah from Yahuwah early in the reign of Zedekiah, son of Josiah, king of Judah. This is what Yahuwah said to me. Make a yoke and fasten it on your neck with leather straps. Then send messages to the kings of Edom, Moab, Ammon, Tyre, and Sidon through their ambassadors who have come to see King Zedekiah in Jerusalem. Give them this message for their masters. This is what Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, the God of Israel, says. With my great strength and powerful arm, I made the earth and all its people and every animal. I can give these things of mine to anyone I choose. Now I will give your countries to King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, who is my servant. Remember, this wicked king, Yahuwah said he's my servant now because y'all wouldn't listen. Now I have to employ this, right? And so now he is my servant. Yes, a wicked king. Yahuwah called his servant. In the previous chapter, he called him his deputy. I have put everything, even the wild animals, under his control. All the nations will serve him, his son and his grandson, until his time is up. The many nations and great kings will conquer and rule over Babylon. So you must submit to Babylon's king and serve him. Put your neck under Babylon's yoke. I will punish any nation that refuses to be his slave, says Yahuwah. I will send war, famine, and disease upon that nation until Babylon has conquered it. Don't listen to your false prophets, fortune tellers, interpreters of dreams, mediums, and sorcerers who say the king of Babylon will not conquer you. They are all liars, and their lies will lead to your being driven out of your land. I will drive you out and send you far away to die. But the people of any nation that submits to the king of Babylon will be allowed to stay in their own country to farm the land as usual. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. So he said, listen, when he come to invade, submit to him. Don't try and buck against him. Don't try and run. If you submit to him, those who submit to him, you will get to stay in the land. Granted, now he going to rule over y'all, but at least you'll get to stay in your own homes and you farm the land. And yeah, you're going to have to give a big portion of what you do to him and his servants or whatever, but you get to stay here. We're going to see how that fared, right? Hold on. I'll read this again. Verse 9. Do not listen to your false prophets, fortune tellers, interpreters of dreams, mediums, and sorcerers who say the king of Babylon will not conquer you. They are all liars, and their lies will lead to your being driven out of your land. I will drive you out and send you far away to die. But the people of any nation that submits to the king of Babylon will be allowed to stay in their own country to farm the land as usual. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. Then I repeated this same message to King Zedekiah of Judah. If you want to live, submit to the yoke of the king of Babylon and his people. Why do you insist on dying, you and your people? Why should you choose war, famine, and disease, which Yahuwah will bring against every nation that refuses to submit to Babylon's king? Do not listen to the false prophets who keep telling you the king of Babylon will not conquer you. They are liars. This is what Yahuwah says. I have not sent these prophets. They are telling you lies in my name. So I will drive you from this land. You all will die, you and all these prophets too. Then I spoke to the priests and the people and said, this is what Yahuwah says. Do not listen to your prophets who claim that soon the gold articles taken from my temple will be returned from Babylon. It's all a lie. Do not listen to them. Surrender to the king of Babylon and you will live. Why should this whole city be destroyed? Right? Even all the time where Yahuwah was saying, I'm bringing the king of Babylon. Stop doing this. I'm going to destroy the place. Even when he bought him, even in his goodness and mercy towards his people, he said, okay, now the king of Babylon is here. Just submit to him. If you can't follow my rule, submit to him. He will put you to hard labor, but at least submit to him. Right? Not that he agreed with some of the stuff, because he was watching the king of Babylon and King Nebuchadnezzar. He tried to do some stuff and he did, and Yahuwah, he tapped that butt. But King Nebuchadnezzar soon realized, wait a minute, Daniel's God is God. Don't nobody else bow or worship no other God than him. As long as I live, we all going to worship Daniel's God, right? So Yahuwah foresaw all of that. So he was telling them, listen, if y'all start fighting against him when he come in here, you're going to die, right? He said you're going to die by war, famine, disease. Do you really want to die? Just submit to him when he comes. He's punishment coming for you. But if you submit to him and to his rule and quit acting crazy, I'm going to still watch out for you, right? This is the constant thing. And I don't know. I'm like, sheesh, when will they ever get it? Listen, let me just go back up. Verse 16. Then I spoke to the priests and the people and said, this is what Yahuwah says. Do not listen to your prophets who claim that soon the gold articles taken from my temple will be returned from Babylon. It is all a lie. Do not listen to them. Surrender to the king of Babylon and you will live. Why should this whole city be destroyed? If they really are prophets and speak Yahuwah's messages, let them pray to Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies. Let them pray that the articles remaining in Yahuwah's temple and in the king's palace and in the palaces of Jerusalem will not be carried away to Babylon. For Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, has spoken about the pillars in front of the temple, the great bronze basins called the sea, the water carts, and all the other ceremonial articles. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon left them here when he exiled Jehoiachin, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, to Babylon, along with all the other nobles of Judah and Jerusalem. Yes, this is what Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, the God of Israel, says about the precious things still in the temple, in the palace of Judah's king, and in Jerusalem. They will all be carried away to Babylon, and they will stay there until I send for them, says Yahuwah. Then I will bring them back to Jerusalem again. That, my beautiful people, is our reading for today. That was Jeremiah 25, 26, and 27. So let's hop on over here and pick up where we left off at yesterday, not yesterday, Friday, and Fossilized Customs, y'all. I don't know what we're going to read next. We're more than halfway through this book now, too, right? So I don't know. I haven't looked, and I don't know what we're going to read next, y'all. And they came to me yet. I'm looking because we almost there. We got, it's 367 pages. We are on page 257, right? Boy, I tell you, you can cover so much ground just by being consistent, reading through the Bible. We reading it through for the third time in 3 years, right? Just 3 chapters a day. 3 chapters a day. We done read one whole 500-page book, The Legends of the Jews, by adding it to the readings after we read the daily scriptures for that day, right? And now we are on page 257. We read 257 pages of this book, right? So what's that? Add that to the 500. We've read like over 700 pages, y'all, in conjunction with the daily reading. Okay, so we left off at, we were talking about the difference between Nazarene and Nazarite, right? You hear people call him Jesus of Nazareth. People from Nazareth were called Nazarenes, but they're different from Nazarites. Oh, before we started Legends of the Jews, we were supposed to deep dive into Enoch. We were, Tiffany, but remember, that's why we were supposed to deep dive into Enoch. But what we did, we just went through and we read through the entire book of Enoch. I don't think we did it the first or the second year, but we did it this time around. Wait, no. We actually did it while we were doing Legends of the Jews. Matter of fact, because while we were reading some of Enoch, some of the stuff at the beginning of Legends of the Jews was kind of like, it was kind of like going together. Remember, I was like, guys, you can't make this stuff up. I was like, it's like, because the beginning parts of it was just kind of lining up. I think we were almost, if you go back, I guess to the beginning of the year, you can kind of see it. But yeah, as into the deep dive and pulling the stuff out, we didn't necessarily like do the study and kind of go through and bringing some of the stuff out. We could do that. Let me think about that, Tiffany. We might have to read it again. I don't know, because we've only read through it. It was like 101 chapters. Some of them were really short too. Some chapters were only like 2 verses, kind of like the Book of Psalms. I don't know. I got some stuff about, and let me think about that, because I don't know that some people fight you on some of the basic stuff. You know how sometimes people be throwing out questions, like you just have to kind of stick with it and go through the study, and while you get all the pieces and pull it together. You know how sometimes some questions can be asked prematurely, and if you would just keep reading, this kind of answered along the way. I don't know. Let me think about that. I got some other stuff too, and I got some books that remember how I tell y'all some of the stuff that Yahuwah tell us not to do, that he says this is forbidden by his people. I actually have some manuscripts from other nations and some of the stuff that they actually practice. And I don't know that I want to read that stuff out loud, because it kind of goes into details. Just like we have a Bible that was canonized, they actually have, they don't call it a Bible, but it's actual manuscripts that their people, it's almost might be their scriptures or whatever. I don't know what you would call it, but it's manuscripts of what was happening during that time. Look, I'll go back up here to what Eddie said. He said, why circumcised? Remember, go back to that video, but specifically about the circumcision though, right? During that time, during King Og's time, matter of fact, if you go look it up, you can go to Amazon and you can find it. And I think I showed it to y'all before. The King Og, what is it called? The book of King Og, the something King Og. But anyway, it was about what was going on during this time. And if you're already really familiar with the Old Testament and you've read through it, when you read through that book, you will be flabbergasted, because it's like you see the opposite of what was happening with the other nations, and you can clearly tell that these people they were talking about, I was like, oh shoot, that lined up with the Bible story here. I was like, oh, that's Israel they talking about, right? So I'm reading through it. It was a quick read for me, because once I opened, I couldn't put it down. I was like, this is why Yahuwah said, oh, it definitely did separate Yahuwah's people from the other nations, because they remember I told you, they hated, they call them the children of the circumcision, right? And matter of fact, there are some things in there about Nimrod as well and what he was doing. And, you know, Nimrod, he wasn't righteous at all, but Nimrod did, because he was the offspring of Yahuwah's people. He completely went off into craziness, right? Nimrod was actually fighting against the giants. So, you know, what's that saying? Enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's kind of sort of like that, but it goes through and it talks about Nimrod and what he was doing and how he was fighting against King Og. But it was also talking about the children of the circumcision, which was clearly Israel, right? And they absolutely hated Yahuwah's people and those who were circumcised. And when they would catch Israel, here's what went, oh, y'all, look, y'all got to go read it. You remember how when they were coming out of Egypt, right? And they were encountering other nations. While they were in the wilderness, remember how we were saying they wasn't just like in a desert. They were literally in a wilderness amongst the other nations. So it wasn't just sand, dirt, dust, and it's just us in the middle of nowhere. No, they were literally going through other cities and towns. And if you actually go, when you realize that, and you actually go back and read through the Old Testament, you will realize as they were moving through the wilderness, they were kind of gaining ground through the different cities and stuff that they were going. They were camping inside of cities that not inside, but they kind of took over them as they covered ground. So it wasn't just the Israelites by themselves. It was actually the surrounding nations around them. And it talks about them, right? And so people were deathly afraid of Israel and the pillar of cloud that followed them and the pillar of fire that surrounded them at night. And they knew that these were those people. But what happened was the hard-headed ones who would go outside of that pillar of cloud and fire, the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of cloud by night, when they would actually go outside of those protections, completely not paying attention, those in the surrounding nations who absolutely hated the guts of the children of the circumcision, Yahuwah's people, they would kill them. The men, let them not catch the men, because they would take the men and they would castrate them, right? And this is really graphic in the book of King Og. That's why some of the stuff, I'm like, y'all, I'm telling y'all better go look at some of these other manuscripts of what these other nations was actually doing during this time. And King Og was such a blasphemous giant. It's like, I'm reading something like, and it's not like blasphemous, like cursing, like you hear people today using like the words like MF and stuff. It's like cursing, like doing biblical days cursing, like literally cursing, right? They would let, if King Og caught an Israelite, anybody of the circumcision, right? He would cut off, he would castrate their penis, take it and throw it up in the air, as in like throwing it at Yahuwah, like, this is what I think about your circumcision. He would literally spit, right? They absolutely hated Yahuwah's people, right? So if you understand some of these things and how deep the circumcision is and how the nations recognized us, granted, you really couldn't recognize unless they had been uncovered, right? But if they were like moving in groups, they were able to kind of, well, smaller groups, they were kind of able to, I ain't gonna say blend in, but kind of blend in, so to speak, so they wouldn't be recognizable as Israel. Because if they caught you, that's what they would do to the men. They would literally castrate the men, right? And they would kill them, but they would cut off their male parts and toss them in the air, like throw them in the air, like, this is what I think of your people, God, right? Like, seriously, that's what they were doing. So, yeah, I don't, Tiffany, I don't know. Because if we get into Enoch, we got to pull out some of that stuff. Like I said, some of the babies is choking on milk. And that's going to be like a whole nother like course of like for the advanced student, like the IB students. But I ain't going to do it. I'm not going to separate it. We're just going to keep plowing through and we're going to grow together. And as we're, you know, as we come off the milk, and we start eating solids, we'll start bringing in some of those things. But I'm letting y'all know about some of these references that I've kind of went through and vetted myself. I've seen other ones that I haven't had a chance to kind of go through yet. But these are some good resources. If you want to kind of read ahead, read it on your own time, you can. I'm not stopping you, right? But some of the stuff I know I can't now because people, if they can't even get some of the basic stuff where Yahuwah said, I am one God. It's just me. I'm not Trinity. I'm not duality. It's one, right? And he teaches us about that principle that he's one, he's a God, even in our marriage, right? One man, one woman, one marriage. And people, they want to fight. Well, Samuel had all these wives, and what about King David? You're missing the point. They both got in trouble for that. And they're harping on the wrong thing. Yahuwah is trying to teach his people about unity and faithfulness. Like, be faithful to me, the one God. My people, be faithful to me. Don't worship me. Don't love me and have other lovers too. Just like he talked to a husband and a wife. It's the perfect example, or it should be the perfect example of representation of Yahuwah and his people between a husband and wife. Husband, Love your wife and your wife only. Wife, love your husband and your husband only. You aren't to have separate lovers. It doesn't matter that you're a man and you were living back in this time. You're not to multiply women to yourself. That was a rule to the kings. Kings are not to multiply women unto themselves. But did they listen? Like we just look at what they're doing, but everybody completely forget and ignores what Yahuwah said. He said, do not multiply women unto yourself. And it was like, well, what about King David when he committed sin with Bathsheba? Yahuwah said to him, if you had these wives and if you wanted more, I would have given them to you. You're missing the point of what he's saying. What happened to King David when he did this? People argue about points that has nothing to do with anything. Like it has nothing to do with the price of tea in China. You're looking at the wrong stuff. The whole point, he says, perfect unity, right? One lover. Everything that Yahuwah is conveying to us can be proven on our level in our lives and in nature. Because when you don't, what begins to happen? Say a husband and a wife, right? Somebody go outside their marriage, husband or man, and you have an estranged child by another lover. It brings problems into this union, right? It brings problems. And now you have a bastard child. I hate to say that, but it's a child that doesn't come from this union. And now we got problems. And now you got to deal with this. And this is a perfect example. If we read through the book of Hosea, he said, this is why I'm telling you not to do this. Keep it all together so it can continue to be a blessing. When you step outside of his bounds, it brings in problems. We can test this by looking at our own lives. Those of us who have children outside of our marriage, and it brings in unnecessary problems. But now they're here. Now we got to kind of deal with it, right? And he has things that he set in order on how to deal with this, but we still don't even listen to that, right? It's like hard-headed all the way around. It's like you will say, look, they didn't on doing whatever they want to do. These are their desires. I never, you see how they didn't set up all this? I told them do this one thing. They didn't add a 47, 50, 11 dozen things to this. I said, do this. He said they're following their own ways, their own evil desires. That's why they got all these problems, right? Okay. So, but yeah, Tiffany, we got to just kind of keep moving through things. It kind of wakes people up to some of the basic stuff that we have. And until we can get those basic things down, I don't know. That's why I'm sticking to this right here. You will say, just read the prophets, man. Just read it out loud. What I realized I was doing after a while, I'm like, oh shoot, like this is what they did, right? And although people today, they have their own version, everybody can go get their own Bible. Back in the day, they didn't have like the printing press, so there was always somebody that was reading it so everybody could hear. They didn't mass produce it so much, right? But now it's mass produced. People still not reading it, so somebody needs to read it, right? You can read it, you don't have to, but what I'm saying is, for those that enjoy the reading, hey, come enjoy. You ain't got to listen to my voice. Some people can't stand the sound of my voice, and that's okay. They can listen to their own voice, just read on your own time. But I figure, you know what, this will be a study buddy, so to speak, for those that, trying to bring some discipline into your life. And we're going to make sure we read it every day. It's getting into us and we learn it every single day, right? We're not perfect. We're adjusting as we learn. Y'all can see, if y'all go back and watch the videos from the previous years, you can clearly see how we have changed, or how I've personally changed from, if you actually go to my backup channel, those old videos are on my backup channel all the way to 2014 when I was still in the church house. You can clearly see how much I've grown over the years. And sometimes I watch them, I just like, I'm going to take that down. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave them up. I'm going to leave them up there, right? So you can just see my progress and how, it just, and I think it's a good reminder for me. Like, man, I'm not there outside, but I've taken 2 or 3 steps ahead, right? So, but it's just a daily walk, So, all right, y'all, let's get back to this. I'm sidetracking about what we're gonna read next. Okay, but anyway, that's all of that is there. You can see if you go back to Legends of the Jews and some of the other manuscripts, you will see some of the scriptures be like, oh wow, this is why Yahuwah said this, because you will actually get a feel for what the other nations were actually doing, and actually, especially some of the sacrificing of their innocent children, how they sacrifice just innocent people for their sins that they were constantly committing. Like, they weren't going to stop their sins, they were just going to keep sinning and keep sacrificing innocent people to atone for their sins. That's why Yahuwah said, don't do this. Matter of fact, somebody, and I know I said it was going to get started, but that is really good to go back and watch, and you will see about the blood, right? I know the blood is a big thing in the church, and I lose some people here because they're just not ready to hear that yet. But if you go read it, you can see it clearly, right? They tell you that the blood cleanses and the blood atones, but Yahuwah doesn't say that. Yahuwah said the blood defiles. Go back and read that. It's like, how do we make sense of this, y'all? Like, it's just things that are like obvious. You saying that the blood cleanses and atones, Yahuwah said it defiles, and it's an abominable thing. Who are we listening to? And we can clearly see it. What Yahuwah said is true. They doing what they want to do. They did not listen to a word I said, right? And so that's what I'm in the habit of doing. This refocus on what Yahuwah says, right? And let's adjust ourselves into what he said. He said the blood defiles, and it's an abominable thing to offer innocent blood for the sins of the wicked. Do not do that. If you screw up, I simply just want you to come and repent, right? Look. They remember how we talked in earlier videos, how they'll take something good, they'll take a bit of truth, and they'll marry it with a lie. Like Yahuwah always said, I simply wanted you to repent, but church teach you that you can't repent until you accept the blood sacrifice. That is not what Yahuwah said. Yahuwah always said, just repent. And if you go through, and now that you know that and you realize that, start over and read it, and you can see it all the way through. Like, oh shoot, he did say this. Oh snap, he constantly said, what is you doing? Just come to me, just repent, stop doing what you're doing, start living a righteous life. And it's like, we don't see it until we're alerted to it, and now you see it everywhere. Even King David was saying, Father, sacrifices and blood and guilt offerings, you do not desire this. You simply want a repentant heart. See, that's what we're trying to break. We're trying to break the doctrines of the church. And you got people even that have come out of the church and that are in the Hebrew roots movement, or returning to ourselves, that are still clinging on to that blood sacrifice. And I decided to speak a little bit about it because somebody asked me about it yesterday, and they sent me an email and inboxes and stuff, and I gave them a list of the videos. Matter of fact, and I'll post a list of those videos here today when we're talking about the blood, right? And that's when you begin to find out that all of these the blood sacrifices that were added to the Levitical priesthood, we realize as we begin to really look at this, and especially if we know this was the exact same things that some of these other nations was doing, oh shoot, wait a minute. And then we'll realize, wait a minute, y'all didn't say that. You put him there, but y'all didn't say that. Because this goes directly against what he says. He's constantly telling us that the blood defiles, and he points out to us, even women say, if the blood defiles, you become unclean. Why would you sprinkle priests who have just been bathing themselves and put on clean linen, sprinkle them on the altar and sprinkle the altar, your clean altar, with blood, animal blood, mind you? Something that defiles, you will say that defiles, right? Because if we're considered unclean when we have our menstrual cycle, and if men, if they have sex with women while they're on a menstrual cycle, which is forbidden by Yah, or even if they have sex with them and the woman didn't know her cycle was about to come, and oops, oh snap, I started my cycle. If the man would also be unclean, if the blood touches him, or if any kind of emissions of blood from anybody else, or accident, whatever, it makes you unclean. Yahuwah constantly said the blood defiles. Why would you then defile your clean altar that they spent time washing all these bowls in water? Yahuwah talks about water, how the water cleanses, and how he's a river of water welling up in the soul. And we're like trees planted by the rivers of living water. When do we start defiling ourselves with the blood when Yahuwah told us to stay away from it? He said, don't eat it, don't drink it, don't eat flesh. But when we get over here in the church, it's like the people don't want to let go of the blood sacrifices, the blood that atones and cleanses and heals. No, it doesn't. And I know that sounds like complete blasphemy to Christian ears or Hebrew roots movement people who come out of the church and still are clinging on to lamb, the blood sacrifice, remember? slaughtering the lambs, like cutting off a dog's neck, is what Yahuwah said in Isaiah 66. And what he said, how do we ignore everything Yahuwah says and continue doing whatever the heck we want to do? Flinging blood everywhere, doing everything in the name of the blood, and the blood that atones and covers all my sins. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It defiles you, makes you nasty. Look at it and just go. Listen. If we would just look at it with common sense, and that's what Yahuwah was trying to get his people to do the entire time. Listen, knucklehead, think about this, right? We can look at it. Okay, let's look at the Levitical priesthood, right? If you go read it, anything in there with animal sacrifices, all of that stuff was added. We can really deep dive into that. We're not, but I'm telling you, I ain't gonna say take my word for it. Just take what I just said and go start looking at that, right? Go start looking at it and actually try and pull up some information from what the other nations was doing. This was actually being done just like some of the other nations were doing, right? Look, if Yahuwah requires his priest, you're representing someone that's holy. This is clean. Like in everything Yahuwah tells us to do, he wants us to be clean. Go wash yourself, right? Even the act of intimacy between husbands and wife, right? He said, listen, when y'all done doing what y'all do and had a good time, go bathe yourselves, right? Change the sheets on your bed. Go wash them. Put fresh linen on your bed. Everything that Yahuwah tells us to do, the end result is that we are clean, right? Mentally, physically, spiritually. So why would he tell us to get clean just to have some priest flick blood on you? Animal blood, mind you. Smear this and sprinkle my clean altar with animal blood, right? No, absolutely not. That is not what he required. He did not say that. That is a mixation of things that the other nations were doing, right? Yahuwah constantly talked against blood. If we actually take the time and go look at it, he talked against it. Do not do these things, right? So that's what I be trying to wake people up to. But guys, y'all should see some of these. I had to stop responding to people on some of this stuff. I'm like, listen, don't argue with me because of how you feel and what you've been taught. Just kind of take this information and go look into it, right? Don't listen to what they're saying. Don't even listen to what I'm saying. What I'm telling you is, okay, look at this and go look and see what Yahuwah is saying about it. Write it out. Keep track of it. Now, base everything what Yahuwah said on what everybody else said. And that's one of the big leavens that goes from the Old Testament all the way into the New, even all the way back, going all the way back to Abraham. If you're able to recognize the leaven, you can find the leaven all the way through, even all the way back to Abraham and the supposedly sacrificing of Isaac, right? I'm telling you this, guys. I'm still working on this whole thing. I'm putting together I'm pulling all my stuff. It's taking me a while to do it because I'm still learning and pulling stuff together, right? And some of the stuff from the other nations of what they were doing. Like, you have to take all of these lies out and look at it just with the truth of only what Yahuwah was saying, not what Paul said, not what Peter said. And not what Jesus said, right? Because they are not the authority. They are not the authority. And that's what get people screwed up. Oh, you're talking bad about Paul? Who is Paul? Yahuwah said this, right? They're treating them like they're gods and they're the authority and they're the all in all. Like, no, I don't care who you are. I don't care if your name is Jesus the Christ. It goes against what Yahuwah said. And I know some people like, that's it, cut off. Nobody's allowed to go back to church. I get it. People say some horrible stuff to me, right? And I just delete it. Some stuff I don't even get. I'm like, y'all are not even paying attention. People want to argue what they think is true and what they perceive to be the truth. And I'm like, I would never approach any of you like that, right? I'm just saying, simply just go check into it. You don't have to believe me. I'm not shoving it down your throat. You can really just stop watching a channel if you don't like what I'm saying, if you don't believe it. But at least do your own due diligence and go search into it. See if I'm truly being a heretic or if I'm truly trying to lead people astray, because I'm not. I'm bringing out some obvious points that nobody really wants to answer for you in the church, they're going to keep glossing over it. I'm not in the habit of doing that. That had me lost for a lot of years in the church and under the spells of people who don't mean you any good, right? They just there to take your money, right? Look, I can't even read. And it is, we are already at an hour and 15 minutes, right? Look, hold on. But it's Sunday though. It's Sunday. So let me stop running my mouth about this. I'll share those with you. But let me read this little bit of portion right here and then we're in it because we're already at an hour and 14 minutes. Okay. Page 257. How can we call ourselves not serene? And he has Acts 24:5. Our physical, in the parentheses, ethnicity, racial, or nationality origins count for nothing. We become children of Yahuwah by our decision to obey him. And this shows not only our love for him, but also it is evidence to all around us who we serve and whose children we are. I agree with that. There is a real bloodline who still exists, of whom we descend from. Not all black people descend from Israel, but Israel is black people. They're people of color, right? And all those who decide they want to join the family. Yes, I agree with this, right? Yahuwah is the maker of us all from one blood. Let's see. Very, very early, the term Nazarene was placed with the Gentile term Christians. There is more to learn about this transition and a matter for another study. It started in the first century under an empire-wide tax called the Ficus Judaicus. The cryptogram Jesus Christ is a man-made fabrication. Yahushua Mashiach is simply the order the phrase takes because Mashiach is Yahushua's title, not his last name. Mashiach refers to the anointed sovereign of Israel, which is Yahuwah, right? The way he using it is still like a separate person outside of Yahuwah, but Yahusha is like a Yahuwah's name with a title. It's like Yahuwah is the Savior. Yahuwah is the deliverer, not this person who comes from him. That's how he's still looking at it, right? That's still that blood sacrifice type thing going on, right? Yahusha is like another title for Yahuwah, right? Just like mighty God, or so King David were also Mashiach. Kings like David were also Mashiachs, Yahuwah's anointed, right? So anybody, if you go read it, anybody who Yahuwah sent, like Moses, Esther, Nehemiah, I named some of the ones that everybody clearly knows about, right? They are considered Mashiachs, right? Those whom Yahuwah used to help his people escape from bondage or deliver them from bondage, right? Y'all know the different stories with Moses and Esther and Nehemiah when they returned, and okay. The word Nazir. By contrast, the vow of the Nazarite is just based on an ancient tradition which became an institution at Numbers chapter 6, verses 1 through 21. The root word is Nazir, having distinctly different Hebrew letters: Nazir, Nun, Zan, Yod, Resh. Natsar is Nun, Sadi, Resh. The word Nazir means consecrated or separated, similar to another word, Hebrew word Kodesh. Hey guys, calm down a little bit. The oath, hey guys, shush. They're playing a game. The oath or vow of the Nazarite is for a specific period of time and can be taken by anyone, provided they offer the prescribed offerings at Numbers chapter 6, verses 1 through 21. But this is going to be very difficult without the Levitical priesthood, temple, altar, and so on, which I also inquired about this to Yahuwah, right? When I took the Nazarite vow, and I was like, Father, wait a minute, hold on. Look, so this, he said, I did not require that, right? That's I'm just telling you my personal conversation with Yahuwah with taking the Nazarite vow, because I was already, when I had taken the vow, I was already kind of looking at the sacrifices and stuff, I'm like, wait a minute, this, right? And so that's simply what Yahuwah said. He said, I did not require that. I'm like, well, okay. And that's all I heard him say to me, like personally, while I was inquiring and stuff. I was like, well, okay. I was like, but they put it here. And that's when I'm realizing, not just then, but even before then and going through, I'm like, some of this stuff is added, don't even sound like you, right? Because I've read through it so much. Like I've been reading like, well, I want to say early 2013, like from like my other channel, when I was reading the Bible, I was reading through the entire Bible every 90 days. So for the first 3 years, I was going from Genesis all the way to Revelation, right? And that's like 10 chapters a day, right? And what I would do instead of reading those 10 chapters a day, I would just give a summary of the daily reading on those videos, right? So I'm constantly getting it on the inside of me. Imagine reading through the entire Bible 4 times a year, right? And now we just broke it down, just going through the Old Testament, right? But what I realized was, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, so if we're not supposed to be doing this, and I'm going through, I was like, wait, this don't even sound like you. I'm like, what is going on? I started having, I was like, well, what is going on here? But I'm like, why is it saying you saying this? But if you're not, I can clearly tell there's like a change in like talking, because if you talk to somebody enough, or you have a friend, you get familiar with their mannerisms and how they talk, and somebody can come tell you they said something like, she didn't say that, she don't even talk like that, like ain't nobody gonna believe you. It was kind of like one of those things. I was like, wait a minute, this clearly, I know it said you said it, but this don't even sound like you. And it's specifically going against what you said not to do. And that's what was kind of, I was trying to work that out. I'm like, okay, why is this? Why is this? And so that's when I began to realize, I was like, okay, there is leaven everywhere, right? It's truth of what Yahuwah said, but around it, there is other things, which is why we hear Yahuwah talking about people adding and taking away from things. And this wasn't the only thing. This is just what they kind of canonized and gave to the masses. But there are other truths that haven't been canonized. And we just specifically talking about this right here, right? So, okay. The person who takes a Nazirite vow is set apart to Yahuwah for the time period specified, so the words are completely dissimilar. Today, there's no functioning temple or priesthood that can perform the requirements stipulated in the word stipulated in the word for the Nazir vow, which I know and understand that those slaughtering the animals and stuff wasn't required by Yahuwah, because we aren't to be killing animals anyway. That was something that was added. Let's see. Then it says, Yahushua was very much in agreement with the general pattern of the Pharisees, apart from their traditions of the fathers. And I read this next little section. We'll pause. Who were the Nazarene? They were the original Hebrew. Hey, Joshua, you're too loud. They were the original Hebrew and Gentile converts following Yahushua and were called Nazarene. You'll find that Paul was called a ringleader of the sect of Nazarene at Acts 24 and 5. Guys, y'all want me to turn it off? The true pattern of the Mashiach, his name, his mission, and what his followers' sect was called are facts being rediscovered today by thousands of diligent seekers. Born a Yehudi, aka Jew, he is of a different tribe than Paul, who was a Benjamite. Neither are Catholic, Baptist, Anabaptist, Amish, or live as any sort of Christian today. It says, this is wrong. It says Yahushua is the high priest of the religion of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. No, he not. Right? And we could get in, let's just talk about it. We might have to end it right after I finish explaining this. It says Yahushua is the high priest of the religion of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now he's talking about JC, but they just renamed him Yahushua, right? They're not talking about Yahuwah, right? With what he just said here. How do we know? First of all, he cannot be a high priest. And I know what it says, but according to what Yahuwah says, thank you, Tiffany, she said how he wasn't even around then. Not only that, But there are certain requirements, right, for the high priest. First of all, let's bring out the point that they couldn't even find out who his daddy was, right? Now, in order to be a high priest in the lineage, in the Levitical priesthood of the sons of Aaron, remember that leg of the family, Levi, all those who descended from Levi, they were the ones who were in charge of the priesthood, from the high priest down to the lay workers, Levites, right? Temple workers, everything. You had to be a Levite. Who did JC descend from? Because you had to be of the physical bloodline. They couldn't even track his daddy back, right? So first of all, there's also a point that Yahuwah makes back in the Old Testament. You can read it through Chronicles. You can read it, I believe, through Kings, also Leviticus and Deuteronomy, that if they can't find out who your pappy is, you can't serve in the temple, right? So don't nobody know who Jesus' daddy is. They said his daddy is God. Okay. If that was true, he still can't serve in the temple because Yahuwah has given his priesthood to the physical bloodline. If his daddy ain't from the physical realm, he still can't be a part of this, right? They don't know who he is. That was a big argument. If you read in the New Testament, they said, you know who our daddy is. Like, they was low-key calling JC a bastard because he didn't know who his daddy was, right? But clearly we know you had to have a physical daddy, right? Well, we know that you can't be the offspring of an angel or another worldly entity who has the free reign to go in and out of either realm, right? You can make yourself known because those ones who were impregnated by those beings, they were of a huge stature. They were Nephilim, right? And they grew way bigger than regular people, right? He wasn't a Nephilim. He was regular people like everybody else during that time, right? You didn't have like angel's blood mixed with human DNA. That nobody mentioned that, right? So that wasn't it. So you first of all, just by birth, you're automatically excluded from the priesthood. You would never be a high priest. You can't just, okay, we like what you're doing, you keep to the commands, we're gonna make you a high priest. No, that's only for bloodline. You don't come, and there's a whole bunch of other things where we can bring out that will prove this over and over again. But if you do what the modern church teaches you, you operate according to, oh, that's done away with, everything is fulfilled here. Those questions never even come up in your mind. Like, you never even think about that, right? So you have those like, no, he can't. They have valid arguments. You can't be the high priest, neither in the order of Melchizedek or the Levitical priesthood. We could get into all of it according to what Yahuwah has said. Now, who gonna step to Yahuwah and tell him he wrong because this is what y'all want to do, this is what y'all believe? Absolutely not. That's why I don't believe that, right? So it says Yahushua is the high priest in the religion of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We just talked about just a couple things of why he's not. So that's false. Okay. He obeys the 10 commandments of the Elohim of Israel, Yahuwah, and so do those who follow him. Technically, it looked like he did, but he said some things that went completely against what Yahuwah said, truth be told. We want to talk about it. And people say, oh no, there's spiritual talking about this. Let's talk about the communion, for instance, right? He said, eat my flesh and drink my blood. What do Yahuwah say? Yahuwah said, don't eat flesh, don't drink blood. Who we listen to? We supposed to do it for play. We supposed to act like we doing this. Because what do Yahuwah, because people say, oh no, this is a spiritual thing. You're doing too much. It's spiritual. We know, no. What do Yahuwah say about that? If it's a spiritual thing, what do Yahuwah say about that? Acting like you're doing something. Matter of fact, we read it every day. And we start the day off with the Shema, right? We're supposed to think about what we're thinking about, because what we think about, we're going to act out. And if we're thinking about, are we playing like we murdering somebody, or we breaking in somebody's house, or we stealing, or we acting like we fornicating and all this stuff, eventually, if we stay on that line of thinking, eventually somewhere in life, we're going to act that out, right? We shouldn't even be acting like, this is my flesh, this is my blood, drink it in remembrance of me. Absolutely disgusting, cannibal, right? Yahuwah said, don't do this, right? Don't eat flesh. Don't drink blood. Don't even act like you're doing it, right? That's another whole thing with the blood on why Yahuwah said absolutely not, right? So he didn't necessarily, or it looked like on the just glancing by, right? That's what we were doing for so many, just kind of glancing by. New Testament, yes, praise the Lord, yes, yes. What would Jesus do? And now one day I'm like, what? Wait a minute, because he didn't do what Yahuwah said. He teaching people to go against what Yahuwah said. And guys, I was sick for days when I started looking. I was like, oh shoot, wait, what? Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm looking at this wrong. But no, I'm like, no, Father, they specifically going against what you have commanded, right? And you'll find this is hard for leaders, even those who have come. I ain't gonna say all of them, because some of them have truly transitioned, but there are some, and I can see they kind of struggle with it, and it's hard for them to give up the blood sacrifice. And like, it's like some of them just will not do it, and they just chalk it all up. This is a spiritual thing, and y'all doing too much. I'm like, guys, this is how you stay in lies and deception. You have to address it all. The spiritual aspect and the physical acting out of this, right? Because in church and even the Hebrew community, they're still doing communion, right? You're acting like this. You're doing a physical act representing that you're eating flesh and drinking blood. So he didn't necessarily keep to the 10 commandments of what Yahuwah said. He didn't. Some stuff sounds about right? Some things sounds about right. Now some people, well, what about the miracles and stuff? Well, Yahuwah addresses that too. Should we go back and read it? What Yahuwah says about those who perform signs and wonders and miracles, right? And not to be taken by those things, because you could be led astray by those things. And people who have surface relationships with Yah, they just kind of there because this is the going thing. This is what we're supposed to be doing. They're taken by stuff. People always looking for a word from Yah when the only word from him is repent, you vagabond, and do what's right. Those are the people who are taken away by these smooth sounding words and all these signs and wonders being done, and watching this woman arm grow out. She done been to 15 different congregations, and she going there all the time with her arm shriveled up. And like, seriously, we talked about this before. Sign, wonders, and miracles. People falling out. Bless the Lord. Oh my gosh. Yes, Jesus is real. He just healed this woman's arm. I'm like, y'all just as foolish as y'all want to be. Hold on. Ain't this the same woman who was just down at First Baptist Church last week doing this miracle rally? Her arm grew out then. What happened from last week to this week where she need to be healed again? That video was going viral on YouTube not too long ago. I dropped my pen. Hold on. I have put this. That's what I'm telling you. Sometimes we can be some of the most gullible people, right? If we don't listen to what Yahuwah has said, and if Yahuwah's words aren't deep down in our heart, some of these things, it is so convincing, especially with technology today. They're going to be led right to the slaughterhouse because they're not even using their common sense, right? People is fooling them left and right. And I'm standing off here to the side. I'm like, listen, ain't nothing wrong with that woman arm. But you see it's all shriveled up. All you can see is her fingers. It's like this. Where's the rest of that woman playing with y'all? She double jointed. Girl, get out of here. You always got something negative to say. No, I'm not. No, ain't nothing wrong with that lady. She like the money. She know how to do that trick with her arm. Double jointed people. Trina, you seen it? Trina said, yeah, she's seen that foolishness. I'm like, look, first of all, I was hollering, laughing while I was going through all the different videos. It wasn't funny, but it was funny. But it really wasn't, right? What was funny to me, but it wasn't really funny, was watching the people just like losing it, praising the Lord, right? Like, oh my gosh. And while seeing this woman transforming and stuff, she should have been on breaking. Break dancing, and people like, bless the Lord, and jumping up and down and screaming and shouting. Oh, you know how people do, right? And I'm like, oh, if only y'all knew. Like, I was in each video that I watched, I laughed harder and harder. I'm like, and I was laughing. I wasn't laughing at them, but I was so tickled because I looked at myself and I realized that was actually me a few times in my life, watching some of this foolishness and thinking it's of Yahuwah, right? Not saying that there hasn't been true miracles performed, right? But some of these things clearly later on, I'm like, what in the, hold on. And I be feeling like a complete fool, right? And it's like, wait a minute, what? So it doesn't matter. I don't care what title they have. I don't care how pissed somebody get with you or they try and curse you. You put your mouth on God's anointed. Who? Show me his anointed. Then I shut my mouth because I clearly don't see him here, and you don't get what I'm saying, right? And they trying to do that they try and put them Jedi mind tricks and scare you with scriptures and stuff. I'm like, you got the right one today. Right? And I'm just all this foolishness. All y'all need to sit down, right? I was so happy when not happy that COVID started, but when all the churches shut down, I'm like, whoo, I ain't gonna say I ain't never been happy in my life, but I was happy because I'm like, Father, this is a good time to get your people's attention. I was like, now they're not going being funneled in there where they're constantly getting garbage peddled to them. They get a break. It's time to break their state, wake them up, right? Because as long as you go in there and they pumping you full of their doctrine and stuff, you stay blind, you can't see, you stay fat and lazy, right? And you can't hear clearly. That was one of the best things that could have happened for Yahuwah's people, that all the pagan temples were shut down, right? Then they started getting a little hip when them pockets started getting a little low. Hey, we done set up PayPal and we done set up Cash App for the church and we done got this. Just text this number. You can go ahead and still give. We learn how to work this camera equipment. We on Facebook now, right? I'm like, ooh, they coming for you. They coming for you. Them pockets getting low, right? So now let me stop right here. We're gonna start this back over tomorrow. Who were the Nazarene, right? I didn't talk too much today. We are at an hour and 35 minutes, but I got to address some of the foolishness when we get through here, because some people really think that, so he's the high priest. I'm sorry, he absolutely can't be, according to what Yahuwah has said and what Yahuwah has taught us. And when we allow Yahuwah to teach us, we don't get all discombobulated when people try and throw scriptures at us and they sound super spiritual, right? Because we're solid. We allow Yahuwah to make us solid in our foundation. He strengthened us. We become like the mighty oak trees. No matter what you're throwing and what you're blowing, we standing firm, right? Because we're nourished really well, right? And we can decipher truth from error. All right, y'all. So it's Sunday, July 25th, 2021, day 215 a year through reading through the books of the law and the prophets. And of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 884, we read Jeremiah chapter 25, 26, and 27. And we read Fossilized Customs, page 257 to page 258. So let's go ahead and jump on over here to Numbers. The blessing, which is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. Remember, when we talk about the Nazarite vow, so the first 21 verses of Numbers chapter 6. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, May Yahuwah bless us and keep us. May Yahuwah make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people. Give me a few moments while I go through here. I'm going to go back through my video. So I dropped my pen. There was a couple of things that I mentioned that I was going to share that I didn't write down. So while I pull up these things, just come back later into the comments section if you didn't write it down yourself. And you can look at some of the things that I was talking about. All right. Yeah, you're right, Lord. You're right. Okay, Sally, shalom, shalom. All right, y'all. You're welcome, Joy. All right. I'll see y'all tomorrow, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace. Oh, here come little baby.
I keep doing it.
Come on. Come on, go ahead and end it, girl. Come on.
I keep doing it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, every time. All right, hit finish. All right. Right there. Hit it. Nuh-uh, right here. Hit this one. Okay.
Animal, where's your mouse?
I know. It ain't here. Hit this. I know.
Josh did.
Yeah, he got it. Right here.
That's my mouse. Let me.
Right.
I'm gonna do it.